Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. I see you all coming on into the community, and we're truly excited to be here. Good morning, Lori. Good morning, Elois. Good morning, Gladys. Good morning, Arlinda. Sister Mary, good to see you. Tight hugs to all the Facebook users in the place with style and grace. Good morning, Jinjin. Good morning. Good morning to everybody. Good to have you on today. We are going to jump into our teaching, try to get through some more of our notes, and then, as always, we will have prayer in the morning at 6 a.m. Miss Dorothy, one of our seasoned prayer warriors, makes me feel like when the Bible says, "Let the older or the more seasoned teach us and cover us and pray over us." She is that in the community. We appreciate her being here and being a part of us and praying over us. So tomorrow morning we'll be right back here for prayer. But for today, we're going to jump right back to wrapping up some loose ends as it relates to day number 3, RESPECT. Gena, find out what respects means to you, from you to you, right? So just looking at what happened to our queen sister, Queen Cleopatra at the end of her life, and how because of her depletion, because of her emptiness as it related to herself, she found herself in a state of committing suicide. And while we acknowledge that that's a real journey, right? We acknowledge that that is a real journey, a real struggle for many people. And it is easy to be externally observing that group and thinking that we are exempt. But many of us, while we may not be committing a physical form of suicide, many of us have engaged in activities that bring suicidal or detrimental or death to our own dreams, to our own visions, to our own goals, to our internal selves. And so, as we work on our theme 2023, being well and whole, seeing ourselves like God sees us, we are really trying to embrace being all that He desires that we be, both externally, internally, all of it. So, welcome to the community, y'all, where we are over here being better together. I see that many of you are already checking in under the video. That's particularly important today because we will be calling your names and we will be lifting you up before the Lord. So go ahead and let's check in. And with that, let's go. Sabrina, I saw your comment yesterday and I actually jotted it down where you said, quote unquote, "This is great." You said, "This is great that you've never done this type of work before." So great, y'all. We really do read your comments and try to link up with what you're talking about. You said yesterday, just being able to take a moment and think about who you desire to be as a child, who you pretended to be. Many of us did that work. If you were here yesterday, go ahead and raise your hand, hit the like button, lean on the heart, give some kind of acknowledgement to yourself that you're up every morning doing the work. But Sarita, you said you'd never done that, where you journey back into your childhood. You said untainted. I saw that you literally picked untainted, being very intentional about connecting with your untainted self, with your uninfluenced self, when the part of you was just organically who you were, right? As an educator, I'm often reminded of, if you were to walk in a kindergarten classroom and you ask those children, "What do you want to be?" Honey, one little girl may raise her hand and say, "I want to be Wonder Woman. I want to be a policeman. I want to be an astronaut, a teacher. And then I want to be a doctor. And I also want to be a veterinarian. And I also want to be a cowgirl in the rodeo." They have no boundaries. They have no limits. They have no sense of what they cannot accomplish. They live in the space of what they can accomplish. Most of us started out that way, but life happens and issues happens and words happens and emergencies happens, and we find ourselves living within like a box of who we've evolved into being, because a circumstance hit us this way and a life challenge hit us this way and somebody's words pushed us this way. But in this work that we do, we choose to say, "Let me quiet all of that. In these early mornings of the hour, let me quiet all of that and try to reconnect with who I am." And so, this whole piece that we're doing, that we're wrapping up, started when we were talking about Queen Cleopatra. And we had a couple of our queens say, "Sometimes I'm just lost. I don't know who I am. I don't even know who I'm trying to nurture, who I'm trying to cultivate. So if you missed those assignments on yesterday, that walkthrough part, you're welcome to go back and watch that video where number one, we delve into charting our childhood, looking back, figuring out. Many of us were Wonder Woman. We were spinning around. We had a person who was particularly interested in women who share the news, who communicated. We had others who were definitely trying to be Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston and Anita Baker and Tina Turner. But it was deeper than that. After you identify who you maybe have wanted to be, if it was your mom, if it was a teacher, you begin to really explore, what did I admire about that person? Was it their attire, and what about their attire? Was it their disposition? Was it their attitude? Was it their words? What was it what they were up to? It helps you to realize that even as a child, you organically began to drift towards different pieces of yourself that God put on the inside of you, right? So very valuable work charting your childhood. Sabrina, I'm glad that you were able to experience that. Honey, you can do your whole little hub. Everybody who's called to lead women, you can do your whole hub and conversation simply about that, where you can gather women together, because I'm going to continue to push, encourage, and challenge those of you who are supposed to be creating safe spaces for other women to not use, well, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to navigate certain things as a reason to not be in action doing your soul snatching. You can literally mirror these lessons for yourself. Teresa, you can gather a couple of girlfriends all the way in Colleen, Gladys, where are you in Tyler, with Miss Pam, Tony, all the way in San Antonio, Shirley in Florida. You can gather girlfriends and say, y'all, in our journey of trying to be well and whole, in our journey of trying to really connect with ourselves, let's just do this simple exercise. Let's identify who we were trying to be as children. Let's explore our whys. Let's see the natural part of us, the organic side of us that God has already wired to be or do those types of things. Let's hold one another accountable. Let's take a step towards becoming who we always wanted to be. So I don't know why you just dropped that in me, but I'm going to continue to challenge you all. Those of you who are supposed to also be creating community spaces and leading women to be about it. Let's get to soul snatching and soul saving this year. Particularly when it comes to spaces like this, where not feeling fulfilled can lead women down very detrimental and dark roads. But number one was charting your childhood. So we're going to go ahead and go to number two. One of the things that someone highlighted was I want to be about self-care. I want to be about self-preservation. But this particular self, I'm not trying to do her anymore. So there was a quote that I said yesterday, and Gena, flash it up on the screen for you. It's just a snippet of a quote, and I want you to really receive this by grace. Let me do this real quick, though. Let me remind us of our scripture, Psalms 139 and 14. God sees us as fearfully and wonderfully made. We're going to continue to embrace and see ourselves like God sees us. With that being said, if who you used to be, how you used to behave is not what you are leaning towards anymore, here is your permission. You are allowed to outgrow yourself. I want to talk a little bit about that. You are allowed to outgrow yourself. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to change. I am allowed to mature. Everybody say that in your homes. I am allowed to mature. And so we embrace that, and we articulate that, and we say that out loud in our thoughts, because we do live in a world where who you have always been is who people frequently expect you to always be. I want to tell you this almost like it's a secret, but I know that you know that it's not. Sometimes people have a problem with you evolving and changing to a better version of yourself. When the world says that misery loves company, it's true. But here's an even greater truth: misery loves miserable company. Miserable doesn't just love company, misery loves miserable company. People sometimes struggle with those who they are familiar with, who were broke with them, are sad with them, are nasty with them. Sometimes those companies, those groups struggle with you making an intentional decision to become better, to become different. Is there anybody out there who would say that's true? That you know some people in your life that as long as you're cutting up, as long as you're suffering, as long as you're operating as less than, they're pretty comfortable with you. But the minute you begin to evolve, the minute you begin to try to change, you get the comments like, oh, you changing. Oh, who you trying to be? Like you can feel the tension between who you're trying to be and who you want to become. You can feel that tension in those relationships. Anybody been there? Anybody understand what I'm saying? If you got me, say, I got you. I understand that, right? And so we have to then choose. I see y'all, I'm coming down so I can see that. We have to then choose to count up the cost to outgrow ourselves. Because in outgrowing ourselves, we are going to outgrow some people. In outgrowing ourselves, we're going to outgrow some circumstances and some situations. In choosing to outgrow ourselves, we will get to the point where certain measures of foolishness we no longer tolerate, where there's certain conversations we no longer want to be a part of, where there's certain spaces where we won't pretend that we don't know what we really do know. When we begin to outgrow ourselves and to determine that I am evolving, I am changing, that growth begins to impact other areas in your life. Like that is really when you begin to come to a place of enough is enough. Here's my boundary and I'm going to honor it. I'm not going to spend or waste there. It's time for me to go and get some rest. This environment I'm not so comfortable in. I'm not coming. Like it's when you begin to allow yourself to outgrow yourself, there are certain ways of being that you no longer tolerate for you. And so then you no longer tolerate it from others. If anybody's ever outgrown a version of yourselves and you're just willing to be transparent on this morning, if you'll jump right down into the comments and tell me something that you outgrew about you, that you outgrew about you. While you're doing that, I'll share. I remember one morning just getting up and going for a 4 mile run, and I posted it and I said, I just got sick and tired of making excuses to myself. I am outgrowing, as I highlighted yesterday, being more committed in my word to other people than I am to me. I'm outgrowing that. I am maturing in that. I am no longer making it acceptable to give my word to like Lorena. If you was to check with one of my mentees, Lorena, Anijah, they would tell you if I told them I'm going to do a certain thing, I'm gonna nail it. I'm gonna do it. They don't worry about my word when it comes to me. At least I hope they don't. They never made me feel like they do. If I say I'm going to deliver to them, they can bet on it. But I didn't have that same level of commitment when it came to me, from me, about me. And I am outgrowing that version of myself. If I say to Gena, you're going to eat better. If I say to Gena, you're going to get your rest or you're going to pull away. If I say to Gena, you're going to go get your exercise, I'm trying to be committed and honoring my word to Gena. I have outgrown being careless in my words to Gena. So I invite you to go ahead and jump into the comments with me. Let's do the work. And then we're going to switch to, I guess, the one that I say has a bit more criticalness in it, even on this morning. Good morning to all of you. I see y'all coming on in the room. What have you outgrown about you? Vanessa, I sent you an important text yesterday, Vanessa Stevens, if you make sure you got it. But what have you outgrown about you? What are you outgrowing about you? And y'all don't give me no vague stuff. I'm trying to find some. What you got, Jen? What are you outgrowing about you? What are you outgrowing about you? Everybody, let's do the work. Let's do the work. What are you outgrowing about you? I'm trying to get all the way down so I can see some of the ones that we got. I am outgrowing other people's opinions about me. Very good, Sabrina. Tell me more. What does that look like for you? Are you saying that you're outgrowing, like really caring about that, or you're outgrowing adjusting your actions to fit other people's opinions? Give me more. I'm pushing you deeper. We're in group therapy on this morning. I see somebody saying, I'm outgrowing trying to be everything to everybody. I'm an aunt trying to honor every invitation. That's good. That's good stuff. Tell me more. Give me why. Why are you making that decision? I see someone else saying, I want to see this long one. Let me see. I'm outgrowing. What's it say? Tell me what that, Jen. I don't know where it went. Okay, I'm gonna have to skip it and come back. Okay, Tiffany says, I'm outgrowing listening to negative conversations and protecting my peace. Tiffany, that one, honey, honey, can't nobody block or ignore like me. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So you're outgrowing even listening, even acting like you have to be the dumpster for people to put all of their negativity there. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great one. Let's see what else are we outgrowing. Somebody else is saying that they are outgrowing being a people pleaser. Gwen, I so struggled with that, but you're outgrowing being a people pleaser. Excellent. I see someone else says, I am outgrowing being more okay. I'm outgrowing settling for less. Man, give me more. I love that one. I am outgrowing settling for less and understanding my worth. Yesterday, I saw one and I was so proud, pretty much because I recognized the person. I saw where Kelsey posted yesterday, even as we were talking about that. So if you're here, good morning, Kelsey. Kelsey said, I'm out. She, well, not in this phraseology, but she said that I'm no longer using that excuse that because he's single, he has the option to do multiple dating when it comes to me. When it comes to me, right? Rationalizing that. She said, I'm no longer allowing myself to operate as second and justifying it by saying, well, he's single, so he has opportunity to date multiple people. That very well could be his definition of dating. I want to be seeing multiple people at the same time. But what she's saying is that that will no longer work for me. I'm outgrowing being second in somebody else's life. Y'all get that? And that's one of our young ladies who's here in her 20s. So I'm very proud of that. I'm outgrowing believing words over actions. Deborah, that is powerful. Deborah Jones is saying, I'm outgrowing believing words over actions. Many of us work harder trying to present someone as a certain way than they do through their own actions. I think that's beautiful, Deborah. Being able to just let a thing be what it is, right? And sometimes, Deborah, let me just say that sometimes that's hard, especially if you truly love a person and you don't want, no, let me say this differently. Sometimes that's hard. Everybody listen, y'all lean in. Let me give you truth. Sometimes that's hard because it's hurtful to come to the conclusion of the truth. Sometimes that's hard, Deborah, because perhaps let's say it's a person that you've loved for a very long time. And you want to believe that they truly support you. You want to believe that they're truly rooting for you. So they say it with their mouth, even though their actions are otherwise consistently. The reality is, we often do not continue to believe them because of what we think of them. We often try to continue to believe them because it's too hurtful to accept the truth. Some of us have to learn, like Deborah is saying, to believe words over actions. Some of us have to make the cognizant choice that this year, I'm going to let truth do what it does, even if it's hurtful. I'm going to stop calling that person my best friend when I really do know. I'm going to stop calling that person my best friend, saying that she and I talk all the time. She and I check on each other all the time, when the reality is the phone only rings one way. We talk because I call her. We check on one another because I check on her. We spend time together because I follow up to make sure that we spend time together. We celebrate birthdays because I celebrate her birthday. She forget that I have a birthday that I got born once upon a time on a day and a time because she'll never remember mine. Like, it's that truth conversation, Deborah, that is often what is hurtful. So we avoid it by trying to believe what they say instead of believing what they do. And I, several years back, began to step into the space of, I would rather let the residue of that hurt go ahead and do what it does in my life so that I can choose differently than to try to continue to navigate with people and try to pretend that they're giving me something other than what they really are. If you can understand that, go ahead and raise your hand and say, I got you. I understand where you're coming from. And then we're going to transition to our last one. So you, Jen, if you can show us one more time. And Deborah, if that makes sense to you, go ahead and put it. And I say it to you with love, y'all. I say it to you with love. I know we do grown woman mature talk. Y'all know I'm going to say mature women stand up. There just comes a point when when you determine that I'm going to outgrow me, that certain mindsets and excuses and behaviors and ways of being, you just say, you know what? I'm just going to count up the costs. If it hurts me to come to this realization, then I'm going to come to the realization and keep it moving. I'm going to find my way. Okay, good, Sabrina. If I realize that over here in this organization, I'm simply being used, while that's hurtful, you know what? Nobody wants to think about themselves as being used, but you know what? I am. I just am. And so I'm going to either continue to go and be used, or I'm going to step into the space of this hurts me. I hate that I had to come to this conclusion, but I know what used feels like. And this is being used. And I'm no longer accepting that in my life. So with my hurt feeling self, I'm going to move around. Like that's mature. That's owning it. That's stepping up to the plate. So we have these, as I said before, and doing the whole navigation of making sure that unlike Cleopatra, we're putting something on reserve for ourselves. We're making sure that we're well. We had these two strategies already, and any of you can teach these. Again, empowering you, go forward, leaders. Number one, chart your childhood. Learn how to go back and intentionally connect with who you were trying to be before the world started doing what the world started doing, before the world started worlding, right? Number two, give yourself permission to outgrow yourself. Give yourself permission to be something other than who you are. And here's the final thing that I will say to that. To really do that, Lori, we have to step out of defensiveness. Sometimes people do not want to evolve because when they encounter the people that used to know them, they operate from a place of defensiveness. They operate from not wanting to really be called out on how ugly or how bad or how wrong or how mean or how cursonish or how whatever they really are. To really outgrow yourself, you have to give yourself permission to outgrow you by acknowledging, yes, there were some things about me that needs to be changed. If I'm not trying to exist in my past life full of pride, but instead I exist in my past life full of humility, then when somebody brings up who I used to be, I don't have to operate in defensiveness about it. I don't have to say, you know, it wasn't that bad or it wasn't me or somebody did so y'all know y'all. No, you get to really stand in that space and say, you know what? You're right. I was a hot mess, but by his grace. And that's how we even begin to allow our past again to show up for his glory and for his namesake, being a testimony and a testament to his grace and what his grace can do. Everybody say, lay down defensiveness. Honey, if you cuss folk out and you acted mean, you just did. And when somebody brings it up, you don't have to try to get them told, or, oh, people won't let me get. No, you acknowledge it. You just say, you know what I did? I probably called you a few choice things. And listen, sis, or listen, fam, I'm sorry. But I'm not her anymore by his grace. I'm walking a new life by his grace. We allow ourselves to outgrow ourselves by not trying to defend who we once were, but walking in grace according to his newness. Everybody with me? You got to lay down defensiveness. Again, if it makes sense, lean on something and let me know that you're tracking. And last but not least, I'm going to wrap us up with this trigger trauma. Whoever's taking our notes, go ahead and put those down so that people can have that. If you are trying to regather yourself, if you're trying to preserve yourself, if you're trying to figure out who yourself is, if you're trying to outgrow yourself, any of the stuff that deals with self, you got some applications today. Number one, chart your childhood. Number two, give yourself grace to grow. Number three, trauma triggers. Trauma triggers, and we'll wrap that up. Trauma triggers. Trauma triggers. In the same way that you are allowed to know your strengths, to know organically who you were trying to be, to understand the dynamics of your strengths and what makes you so valuable and precious to the Lord. Listen, in a world that has often taught us again to sweep under the rug, to hide out, to not address, to don't talk about the elephant in the room, I am encouraging you as a part of your self-work, as a part of just being grounded and rooted in who God created you to be, to understand your trauma triggers, to really be present to what throws you off, to really be present to what puts you in a bad space, to really be present to what where you have soul holes. That's one of our cohort words, are your soul holes, to really be present to what strips you and what can take you downhill really fast. Listen, we all have weaknesses. The Bible says that in our weakness, that's where God is made strong. But many of us have not sat with and really done the work of, like, if I'm having a really, really good day, if I engage in this type of activity, or if I get too wrapped up in certain types of things, that's going to throw me all the way off. Why is that important? It's important to know where you've been healed so that you can safeguard that healing and not always be exposing that trauma or that broken place or that bruised place to repeated actions that are dangerous for your well-being. More than that, I want to lean in the few minutes that I have left to tell you this. Just yesterday, I was talking to one of my mentors, right? And we were having a discussion about a space of contention that she was engaged in. Yes, Tiffany, I see you saying, know where you've been healed. A contentious place where she was engaged in. And she said that the colleague who was a part of that contention said to her, your behavior is triggering something for me. Your behavior is activating one of my triggers, right? And so the lady explained to her, when you do this, this, and this. So I'm going to just give some details of it because I don't want to expose the person, so it won't. But the lady said, when you repeat yourself frequently in our setting, it's a trigger for me because my mom used to always repeat stuff over and over and over, and it would really bother me. It would just get on my nerves. And so when we're sitting in these sessions, when you do that, you take me back to this headspace. And my mentor, y'all listen, y'all listen, your trauma triggers. My mentor says she leaned in and she was attempting to understand that, and she asked a few questions, and for just a moment she kind of sat with that, wanting to alter her behavior. Y'all hear me? Then she said she realized though, and so she returned the favor and tapped her, and she said, while I acknowledge that my repeating what I am saying causes a bit of tension for you, what's happening for me right now is that the things that I'm trying to repeat are in an effort to remind us of the rules and to remind us of the order of what we are supposed to be doing. Here is a trigger for me. I grew up in the home where my father was an officer. I grew up in a home where understanding the rules and the requirements and the standards provided safety for us. So when I'm operating outside of situations and circumstances that feel a bit chaotic and out of order and a bit under, just out of place, that's a trigger for me. Y'all hear me? This is beautiful. She said, so while I acknowledge your triggers, I'm not going to dishonor my own, trying to make sure that your triggers are okay. We're going to each have to manage our own triggers. Y'all get that? I'm not going to dishonor what makes me well in an effort to ensure that you are well. We now have a better understanding of what impacts one another, but we're both going to have to own the responsibility of making this well. So here's how it's going to have to go. If y'all are going to want me to stop repeating myself because that's your trigger, then I'm going to need you to start operating in order so I don't have to say it over and over again. And there's something powerful to the last thing that so many women said, as it relates to rest, as it relates to feeling as if they were tired. Y'all remember that? As it relates to, I'm feeling exhausted. I'm tired in places beyond my physical body. Many of us exist in that state because we navigate our worlds trying to honor what makes other people well at the expense of what makes us well. Y'all hear me? So many of you, when we were talking about Queen Cleopatra, and y'all were like, I'm tired. I need a rest. I saw like my dear friend Sharon Pellin saying, I'm just tired. I saw Dia saying, I'm just exhausted. I just saw so many of you on that. And what I want you to know is that many of us are tired in places beyond our physical bodies because we live at odds with ourselves. We are not in integrity with ourselves, with what we think and what we feel. We allow that to take second place to what other people think and what other people feel. What my mentor was basically acknowledging is, I know that a bit of my behavior may be off-putting for you, but I'm okay with that until you're willing to adjust so that I'm well and you're well. I'm not going to lay all of what I need down so that you can be okay. What does that look like? What does that translate like what does it look like in our everyday worlds? Is somebody saying, well, I don't need you to keep repeating to me blah 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 and blah blah. Well, guess, because that's a trigger for you. Well, guess what? Until you do what you're supposed to do, I'm going to need to repeat it because I'm going to need to get this off my chest. Because when I walk around not saying what I really think and feel, then I don't have peace. So you say you don't have peace because I keep repeating, because I keep bringing the conversation up, because I want to talk about that. Well, then listen, for both of us to get peace, let's finish this conversation. Let's bring resolution to it. Don't expect me to stop talking about it, but you don't want to be accountable for it. Let's do both, because I promise if you ever become accountable and get your actions together, I would love to save my voice. I would love to spare my good throat. Trust and believe. I don't want to just walk around talking about it because I just want to walk around talking about it. I have an unfinished need, and I'm not going to deny that resolution is a solution for me. Understanding is a solution for me. Needing some kind of resolve is a solution for me. I'm not apologizing anymore for what I need. I need rest. I need rest in my mind. I need rest in my heart. I need rest in my emotions. I need rest in my spirit. The reason, again, that many of us walk around exhausted, it's not so much that we just need a physical nap. It's that there are too many things happening in our minds, in our spirits, in our emotions that are not at rest. So that even when we lay down to physically rest, we're not at rest. And y'all, I've outgrown that. I've outgrown existing like that and feeling and being guilted or being condemned for being able to articulate what I'm going to need or what I do need if we are going to be in these dynamics together. I hope that's making sense for everybody who talked about just being tired, just needing rest, just feeling exhausted and drained. A measure of that really is physically, let me just lay down. But there is a measure of it that says, I got to get in integrity with me. There's nothing more exhausting than later recounting a conversation and feeling like, man, I didn't stand up for me. Man, I let them say that and I knew it wasn't true. And I just took it. Now, I'm not saying take on every battle with no wisdom, but I am saying for the things that matter to you, for the priorities, for the stuff that just gets in your gut, in your heart, in your spirit, there is a measure of not being able to rest that comes from not being in integrity with ourselves. We're going to learn how to safeguard our own trauma triggers. We're going to learn how to figure out what doesn't make me well. And if that does not make me well, I'm not co-signing on that stuff anymore. Y'all, I love y'all. I hope you receive it in love. I feel oftentimes now like we're doing group therapy. Anybody else feel like that? Like we're doing group therapy together? Yeah, I'm gonna have my waiting list when my practice open. Y'all already start sending me that good grace so I can pass my test. So I can pass my test this semester and graduate. When I graduate, I'm gonna let y'all know, right? But yeah, trauma triggers. Learn what has broken, what has messes me up, where have I been healed, and safeguard that stuff. and stop laying it down to accommodate somebody else's well-being. Y'all good? All righty. So tomorrow we'll be right back here for prayer. Cheryl Halls, good to see you all. Good to see everybody. Good to see you all. I'm telling you, I say everything that I say with love, wanting us to really live towards theme 2023, well and whole. If you receive it, everybody say amen. See you right back here in the morning for prayer. I've put our give, if you're giving for the month of March, is somewhere up there. Y'all can do that. Hey, Keziah, tight hugs. Keziah, man, good to see you. Yes. All righty. Y'all take care. I'll see you in the morning. I honor the greatness that's on the inside of you. Bye now. Oh, real quick, real quick. If y'all will pray, Deborah Jones is one of our queens. She is hosting her event this weekend. Yours truly will be one of her speakers. So pray for me, but also pray for her as she goes forward. Every other leader who's supposed to be leading, y'all better be out there leading. Next month, next week. Oh, that was private invitation to our sowers. Y'all should have that. And in April, for those of you who are in the Houston area who wants to drive in, I'm going to be keynoting over at the Church Without Walls. So if you're a member at the Church Without Walls, or if you just want to track with me over there, I'll make sure that I post up that information for you so that I can have you all in the place as we go in fellowship at the Church Without Walls. Pastor Ralph West and Sarita West. The formal name is really Brook Hollow. I think I've called it Church Without Walls so long. But anywho, so I'll give y'all some updates on where I'll be and what I'll be doing. But love y'all. Deborah, be blessed. We'll see you on Saturday. Those of you who are coming, I'll see you there. Next week, I'll see y'all there. And we'll see everybody back here in the morning for prayer. Bye now.